You're here in the UK on the back of the release of your current album, Frankie and the No-Go Road, which Guardian recently called one of Americana's finest concept albums. I take it you're pleased with the response the album's getting?
Oh, absolutely. Very pleased. And when I created this, I knew I was taking a risk. You know, it's not completely a heady concept album in a sense. I find it pretty accessible. I think it's pretty accessible, but I knew that it was risky because some of the concepts behind it, when I try to explain them, I can see some eyes start to glaze over. I'm so pleased, and our reception in the UK has been wonderful too. So.
What was the actual inspiration for getting this album together?
So I was flying home, maybe from here, someplace, on a plane, and I was doodling. I love to draw cartoon type characters and kind of esoteric types of things, and I was doodling away, and I looked down at the paper and I realized that this circular series of animals in different transformations appeared to me to look like a hero's journey, a classic hero's journey, which is something I studied a little bit of in college. There's Joseph Campbell has a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and The Power of Myth and all of that. So I realized that this looked like that classic series of steps that so many stories and myths have in common. And I thought, that's neat. And you know, that would be a really cool album cover. And then I just about slapped myself on the head. Well, what don't I do an album about that? So a lot of people narrow those steps down to about 12. And that's the perfect amount of songs for a record. So right then and there, I just basically decided to do that. And it's so funny because a lot of times ideas like this, exciting, inspiring ideas come to me, and I make a decision to act on it when I'm traveling, and often up in an airplane. And I wonder if it has something to do with just not being anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
You're just up there in the air. You're not in Nebraska. You're not in, you're just anywhere. You're up there, and anything seems possible, I guess.
And the way that album was then presented with the artwork and the sleeve notes, because obviously they're all your design as well. Yeah. Did you see that as an extension of the songs, or was it a very integral part of what the whole project was for you? And project is probably a bit too clinical a word, but
no, I've used the same term. Yeah, I think it's pretty integral, because that was another decision I made right off the get-go, is that I'll do my drawings, and to me this will grow together, or I'll inspire myself through the drawings as well. So the drawings are also really inspired by Norval Morrisseau's artwork. He's an Ojibwe painter. He's passed away now, and he was known as the Picasso of the North. And he started a whole school of art called the Woodland Indian School of Art, which inspired a lot of young Native artists in Canada and the northeast of the States to create art inspired by their traditions. And a lot of his art was inspired by ancient rock paintings and such from his culture. So that connection also drew me in a sense, because I realized that in some ways the hero's journey is a little bit like a shamanic journey.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in Northern California, but I listened to all sorts of music, and my mother is part Native American. She's a Assiniboine Sioux from Montana, northeastern Fort Peck. And then I have Cornish, I have all sorts of different things, but I loved listening to people like Buffy St. Marie. I listened to her a lot in college, and was always inspired by people who could bring in sounds. I felt like she brought in a lot of sounds that to her felt very much like part of her heritage. Yeah.
Well, you've just mentioned Cornwall and your Cornish roots there. A couple of nights ago, you were playing in my hometown of Plymouth, which is just the other side of the River Tamar from Cornwall. So what's the story about your Cornish roots, your Cornish ancestors?
Well, it's simply just that my grandfather, who I was very close to, was the son of 2 Cornish immigrants. His mother I knew, because she lived till she was 96. So my Nana and Pop grew up in Cornwall. She grew up in the village of Brieg, not far from Penzance. And my great-grandfather is from Camborne. And they were both from mining families. They married at a church in Penzance, and then they emigrated, and they had my grandfather in Upper Michigan. And then they did the sort of typical Cornish route from Michigan to Butte, Montana, and then all the way to the west to this place called Grass Valley in California, where there's a huge network of underground gold mines called Empire Mines. And there were many, many Cornish there. In fact, you can still buy pasties at several different stores in town. They have a Cornish Christmas celebration where they sing carols. And he was a singer as well. And he sang in the Cornish Glee Club and the carol choir, and he played drums in the pipe corps and all sorts of things. And we listened to, they even had records we listened to when I...
So were any of those songs passed down through the generations of your family to you?
Yeah, and I haven't sung them myself, and I think, I sometimes I sing along if I put on a record, and I can single out my great-grandfather's voice, even though I never knew him.
Really?
My father pointed out who he was early on, and it sounds to me like a voice I would know, or that would come from our family, and it's so great to hear it. We listened to them every Christmas. My father would come in and tell us to sit down and shut up, and he would put these records on, and he and my grandfather would stand and sing along. My father always emphasized to me how this was a male chorus.
Right.
And I did not sing along. And he encouraged me to be artistic and musical, but I remember that these songs were male, which I appreciated too, because it was gorgeous, and I didn't really want to hear a soprano in there anyway, but it was gorgeous, but also the side of me that went, I can do my own thing then,
Well, you wrote your own song about it on the album Burn, didn't you, when Myners sang?
Yeah.
That, I'm assuming, is a direct tribute to your great-grandfather.
Yes, yeah, definitely, right. So we did that. I wrote that special song for when we went underground in a mine not far from Empire Mines near Grass Valley. There's one remaining underground gold mine that's functioning with only about a dozen full-time miners. They've closed off most of it. But they allowed us in to play some music, so we went down and found a really nice spot and played and made a little live CD, and I played that song. I wanted to have something special to offer, so I played that song there. Yeah.
Was that a particularly emotional time for you, with obviously your family heritage, to actually make a recording in a location like that?
Yeah, well, it was something I always wanted to do, to find out what it would feel like to be singing underground. And of course the conditions are all wrong. I'm not working, I'm not, it was all not the way that it would traditionally be done, but I had a lot of fun all the same. And music is, as you know, just an incredibly powerful emotional pool. And those times when my father told me to sit down and shut up and listen, they really taught me a lot about the power of music and the power of the voice. And when I hear those carols, or when I go those places and think on those things, that it's very, very moving. Yeah.
Well, that particular song begins with an adaptation of a line from one of the Psalms, I think. Is it my heart is stirred by noble theme? Is the original line or something? Or is it different in translation?
I use, my heart is stirring with a noble song. Yeah. And
was that the springboard for the song?
Yes, absolutely. And I came across that line, and I'm not religious myself per se, but I did study religion in college for my college degree, and so I appreciate a lot of the readings, and I came across that line and thought, now that's the beginning of this song, and I just sat down and wrote it right from that line, which was a perfect beginning. Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to see you here at Whitstable, and wish you every success, should I say continued success with this album, because it's obviously garnered some great reviews already. And one final question: do the pasties in North California taste as good as the pasties actually in Cornwall?
No.
Correct answer. Correct answer. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.